Hello everyone, I am Amy Shaw, co-manager of BECTU Vision, and delighted to be hosting this webinar this evening, exploring the lighting department in film and TV. BECTU Vision is a Scotland-based training arm of BECTU, the UK-wide union. BECTU stands for Broadcasting, Entertainment, Communications and Theatre Union, and they support freelancers working in film and TV. BECTU Vision provides a wide range of support for crew in Scotland. We work with new entrants coming into the industry, looking for advice and support in their first jobs, people transferring their skills, such as some of you are perhaps watching this evening. And we also support existing crew with a wide range of short courses and initiatives for individuals, and also to support the wider industry in Scotland, creating safer, fairer and greener workplaces for our industry. I'm delighted to be joined by two guests, film and TV electrician Darren Smith and new Kelvin Hall Manager Stuart Guiney, who are going to talk a little bit about their careers and knowledge of the industry. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the electrician conversion programme that BECTU Vision are currently recruiting for. We have closed captions today, so if you would like to use them, please just click on the double C at the bottom of your screen and they should come up for you. I'm also joined by our coordinator, Sarah Mandel, who's working in the background to support all our tech. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box at the bottom and Sarah will filter them through to us. Firstly, I thought I'd give you a brief overview of the landscape of filming in Scotland. Scotland's film and TV industry has grown rapidly. You may have seen newspaper reports and news articles about productions filming in the streets of Edinburgh and Glasgow recently. It's really great news, and it means that as production levels grow, we need more and more crew, which is why we're hosting this webinar this evening, to share a little bit of information and hopefully inspire some of you to consider working in our industry. We film a variety of programmes here, dramas such as Shetland, Guilt, The Nest, The Cry, Outlander, Good Omens recently, comedies such as Still Game, Scot Squad and Two Doors Down, and factual and game shows like The Hit List and Ready Steady Cook. We also film children's programmes like Molly and Mac, and we've got our continuing drama River City set in Shieldinch. We also have a number of feature films that film in Scotland, small, independent, low budget ones, right up to the Hollywood blockbusters that either film a little bit of their film here or do the whole thing, like Batgirl did recently in Glasgow. There's also a lot of work in commercials in Scotland. The huge breadth of content filmed in Scotland is only increasing as more people want to watch more programmes on the broadcastings and streamers. The majority of this work is freelance, which means that each production hires its crew for that one job, and once they are finished on that, they then move on to the next production. And the length of production varies depending on what it is. If it's a commercial, it may just be 1 or 2 days. If it's a TV show that has 3 episodes, it may be 12 weeks. Or if it's something like Outlander or Good Omens, which is an HETV production, it may last for 8 to 12 months of the year. The freelance nature of it means that we don't always know what's coming up. There's no set calendar for the productions, they just pop up as and when throughout the year. So whatever job you're working on, you may not know which one you're going on to next, which is an adaptation for how many people work in other industries, but it also means that you're often working in different and unusual locations and always working with new people. The majority of the filming in Scotland tends to happen in Glasgow and Edinburgh. We have studio spaces in both of these cities, and we can also provide a number of different backdrops such as flats, houses, rivers, etc. However, we also, on occasion, depending on the need of the production, venture to other areas of Scotland, such as the coast in Fife or up to the Highlands. It's really dependent on what the story calls for. We tend to work quite long hours on productions. It can vary, but on a drama such as Shetland, a day would tend to start about 8 AM and finish at 7 PM, and that would be for 5 days a week. That's an 11-hour day, and generally we film during the daylight hours, but of course if the story requires it and we have night shoots, that could shift, and we could be starting at 7 o'clock at night and finishing at 6 AM in the morning. It really varies. And although we tend to work 5 days a week, that can also vary a little bit as well. We're really lucky in that we get access to loads of amazing places that the public often don't get to, but sometimes we're only able to do that at the weekends. So sometimes your 5-day work pattern can split over a weekend. But we're really well looked after in our productions. On most of them, you will get breakfast and lunch as well as an afternoon snack. We know that an army marches on its stomach. I'll be sharing a Padlet link at the end of this session, which has loads more information about the film and TV industry in general, and some Scotland specific links as well. So you can explore that, and we'll also share our contact details. So if you have any other questions about working in film and TV in Scotland, you can get in touch directly with us at BECTU Vision. You may have come across this webinar when reading about the electrician conversion programme, and I'll chat a little bit about that later on, but I'm really delighted to have, as I mentioned earlier, our two guests, Darren and Stuart, with me today. I'm going to first invite Stuart to join me to talk a little bit about his career. Hello, Stuart, how are you?
Hello, Amy, how you doing? I'm good, thank you, I'm good.
Good. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's nice. Thank you for inviting me along.
No problem at all. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, you're the new studio manager of the new Kelvin Hall studios that have opened in Glasgow. Yep. But I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about your kind of career and experiences to date and what's led you to that role?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the TV industry for 20 years now. I left school when I was 16, got an apprenticeship as an electrician. I worked in the trade for 10 years. At which point I saw an advert for a trainee electrician or trainee lighting electrician. Of course, I was already qualified, so a trainee lighting electrician with the BBC, and that coincided with River City just starting. So I joined the BBC, and for the next 10 years, I would say I spent probably about 6 or 7 years predominantly working on River City. In and out of the BBC studios up at Queen Margaret Drive at the time, and then latterly Pacific Quay. So I was a sort of TV lighting spark for 10 years. I then moved on and became a technical manager with the BBC. And I did that for about 5 years. I then moved into more of a managerial role, and I became operations manager for 5 years. And then a couple of weeks ago, I started my new role with, so it's still with the BBC, but it's a commercial subsidiary of the BBC called Studio Works. So they sit under the BBC Studios umbrella. So that's a very sort of brief overview of, you know, how I got where I am now.
So you've done that work on the ground on the productions. You've been on the kind of front line of productions, and you've experienced all of that, and now you've moved into your new role.
Yeah.
So in your new role, can you tell us a little bit about what your role will be there and what the kind of work opportunities will be? Because a new studio in Glasgow is quite an exciting thing. Obviously, you've had the experience at PQ, and you could maybe tell us a little bit about what's filmed there, but also what the future holds with the new studio as well.
Yeah. So you know, I was at BBC Scotland for 20 years, and probably for the last 10 years, I've very much been based at Pacific Quay. So at BBC Pacific Quay, they've got a number of TV studios. They've got a sort of large multi-camera TV studio. They've got a slightly smaller multi-camera TV studio. They've then got lots of sort of ad hoc spaces or smaller TV studios where things like Sports Scene take place, Reporting Scotland, the 9, another news programme. But BBC Scotland's been very, very successful in creating or facilitating a lot of TV shows for BBC One, for Channel 4. You know, quite a few of your Saturday night TV shows, BBC One prime time, are made at BBC Scotland. You've got Hit List, you've got Mrs Brown's Boys. You've got things like Richard Osman's House of Games, lots of sort of game shows seem to come from BBC Scotland. And the other sort of work that BBC Scotland does as well is they do outside broadcasts. So they've got a sort of big outside broadcast truck. So BBC Scotland will be facilitating the Scottish Cup final this year. They do live championship football every week, and you know, all of these things I'm talking about require lighting effort and require electricians to make them happen. And you know, one thing I loved about my work at BBC Scotland was the variety of work that you got. You know, one day you could be out running in power running out power from a Jenny to supply, you know, the presentation position for a football match, and then, you know, the next week I would be back down in Dumbarton, you know, working in River City. I just loved the variety of it. So now I've just started a new role with BBC Studio Works. So as I mentioned before, they're a commercial subsidiary of the BBC. BBC Studio Works runs studios in Television Centre in London, and in Elstree Studios in London, and at BBC Elstree in London. The type of shows that BBC Studio Works make, and they make shows for, you know, all broadcasters, not just BBC. So BBC Studio Works facilitate Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway. They facilitate all of the ITV daytime output. So Lorraine, Good Morning Britain, Loose Women, they do the Graham Norton show, they do the Jonathan Ross show, they do Sunday Brunch, they do EastEnders, they do Strictly Come Dancing. So, you know, some real big hitting shows. So, you know, I'm really excited to have joined StudioWorks, who are expanding outside of London for the first time, and they've chosen Glasgow to open up a multi-camera studio facility in. It's due to open in sometime in the autumn. It's due to open. It's still very much a building site at the moment, but it's a fantastic facility. It's a big studio, state of the art, and yeah, really excited to be part of that and setting it up.
It is super exciting, and it's exciting to hear about all the productions that you just reeled off there, because there's just so much coverage, isn't it? There's so much, and as you said when you were referencing PQ as well, all of it needs lights. You know, it all needs lighting in some way, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it all needs lights and it all needs power, and yeah, so you know, the electrical team or the lighting team, you know, are an integral part of any TV production or, you know, film production. It's good.
And can we talk a little bit about the team that's kind of involved when you're in studios? Is it always the same makeup of team, or does it vary depending on the production? Is there a kind of a classic hierarchy, or does it vary?
Yeah, so in the lighting team, you'll hear the term gaffer. So you'll always have a gaffer, and they're in effect the supervisor of the lighting team. So you'll have a gaffer, and they will, you know, they'll be responsible for their team, and they will work closely with, you know, in drama it might be a DOP, director of photography. In a television studio, it's more likely to be a lighting director. And you don't only work closely with the lighting director, you work with console operator. So, you know, you've got hundreds and hundreds of lights in a TV studio, and they're not, you know, they're not just lights that switch on and off. Some of these lights are sort of intelligent lighting, you know, they have to be programmed, etc. So they need a lighting console to operate them. So yeah, as a member of the lighting team, you'd have your gaffer, and then, you know, from a small show, there might be a gaffer plus two other lighting or sparks on the crew. Or, you know, if it's something huge, I mean, something like Strictly, you know, you're going to have a lighting team of about, you know, 12, 14 on Strictly, and that's just your sparks. You know, over and above that, you'll have multiple console operators, you will have a lighting director, and the other area that lighting works very closely with is the camera team. So, and you know, and a drama would be, you know, it'd be close to the camera operator, close to the DOP. Quite often the DOP operates the camera as well. In a TV studio, it's a bit different. There's a role called vision engineer. And what they actually do is they remotely control the cameras. And when I say control the cameras, I don't mean the movement of the cameras, but they remotely control the iris of the camera. They remotely control the color balance of the camera, and all of that, you know, the console operator, the spark, the vision engineer, the lighting director, they're all working together to create something that looks amazing, if you know what I mean. You know, it's really, you know, it can be really quite creative.
There's so much to it, isn't there? There's so much about the different roles that you've talked about there, you know, and that covers the kind of different, the studio and the drama side of things. And then as you say, within that, it can expand if it's a big production that just gets bigger and bigger. Yeah,
there is. I mean, it can be. I mean, it's maybe worth. I mean, is it worthwhile me talking about, you know, what you would actually be doing in a TV studio?
Yeah, I think that would be really useful to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, when I joined the TV industry, you know, I turned up on my first day with like my tools and my multimeter and all that ready to go, and you know, the rest of the team are just looking at me like, okay, see all those tools, put them away. because it's actually very unusual that you will actually use tools. I mean, okay, you'll use hand tools, you'll use the odd spanner, you'll maybe use a pair of pliers, but you're not using them to strip cable. You know, you won't really do any terminations, anything like that. Everything's plug and play. In a big TV studio, what happens is we've got a thing called a lighting grid. So, you know, you're not even often working on ladders, because what happens is the lighting grid is, it will come down to the floor. So it will come down to you. You will then hang the lights on bars, and it could just be as simple as hanging it on the bar, hooks hanging it on the bar, or it could be a bit more complicated. It could involve a bit of scaffold work. You know, if it's really complicated, you would get a specialist scaffolding contractor in, but sometimes it's maybe just linking two bars together. So there's a lot of that involved. In a TV studio, that would be called the rig, and that would just be a big team of sparks in the studio on your own. You would generally be doing the lighting rig. You'd be hanging bars on lamps. You'd be connecting them up to power. You'd be giving the lamps a data connection, because as I said earlier, a lot of these lamps are intelligent now. They've got heads that can move, they can change colour. LED lighting at Kelvin Hall, it's a full LED lighting rig that we're putting in. So if every lamp will require data as well as power. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you'll be hanging lamps. The grid all goes back up to the roof, and then you'll have to start focusing these lamps. And then maybe the next day the lighting director will perhaps join you the next day, and you start to power the lamps up, and working with the lighting director, you will then go around and start focusing the lamps into all the positions that the lighting director wants. And again, you're not only lighting people, you're lighting bits of set. You might be installing LED tape. So I mean, it's there's just there is so much to it. There's so much new terminology to learn, new bits of kit you won't have seen before, lots of temporary power to get run out. That's a big thing in a TV studio. When you walk, TV studios always get cleared down at the end of a show. So when you walk into a TV studio, the floor's clear. There's nothing coming out any of the wall boxes. There are wall boxes with data outlets and power outlets, etc., all around the studio. That's all been stripped bare. So, so what you'll tend to find sometimes, you've got a team of sparks maybe working on temporary power. You'll have a team who are hanging lights on the bars. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And like you say, it's quite interesting as well, because you don't know where you're going to be necessarily from day to day, do you? Like you'll have your set job for whatever you're on at that point, but the next week, as you say, you could be doing something completely different.
Yeah, that's right. And at Kelvin Hall, we're hoping to operate on a freelance model. So we'll have a sort of staff permanent gaffer on board, and then we hope to use the freelance market in Scotland. So when we get jobs in, we hope we can attract people to come and work in our studio. And it could be that the team coming into our studio have just been working on a drama somewhere, or they might have been working down the road at BBC Scotland in their studio. I mean, it's a relatively sort of tight industry in Scotland. Everyone tends to know each other, and there's kind of a family feel to it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really positive things about working in our industry in Scotland. And I know I mentioned in my introduction that obviously it's getting bigger and it's expanding and there's more and more productions happening, but it still feels quite tight knit. And it feels like when you go from job to job, you still meet people that you knew from before. And although you're meeting new faces, it's still like you're seeing the same old faces as well. And so it does have that really nice connected feeling, as opposed to other areas such as London, where it's so big and there's so many crew. So you don't necessarily get that crossover very often. But up here, I think you really do, don't you?
Absolutely, it's really nice. I mean, an example of that was at Kelvin Hall Studio, you know, you know, I'm going to be responsible for setting it all up and managing it, and you know, right down to, you know, setting up the room that the costume team work in. Now, I've got no experience of, you know, I've never worked in costume in my life, but today I was sitting thinking, and I thought back to my River City days. And so today I contacted someone that I used to work with in River City, who was a costume assistant back then. She's now a very successful costume designer now. So I got in touch with her today to say, can I give you a phone tomorrow and we can have a wee chat about setting up this costume room? Because, you know, it's not my area of expertise, and that's what's lovely about the industry in Scotland. You know, it's you will continually come across people that you've worked with.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned that you'll be kind of crewing up and looking for freelancers and things like that. You did that same sort of role in PQ as well. What do you look for somebody coming into the industry? You know, if someone's looking to come in, what do you look for in somebody, both qualifications wise and also soft skills wise?
Yeah, so I think firstly that there are a few soft skills that are really, really important. I think you have to be passionate's maybe a bit of a strong word. You have to have an interest. You have to have an interest in either TV or film or lighting. I mean, you know, I had that. I was really into lighting when I was younger. You know, before I even knew it was you know, it was something I could do for a living. You know, I remember my mum giving me into trouble because I'd brought a traffic cone into my bedroom, and I stuck a light bulb inside it to create like an orange glow in my bedroom. And I must have been, I don't know, I must have been about 11 at the time or something. I remember my mum giving me into trouble for that because I think I wrecked one of her table lamps to make it. So I think you've got to you've got to maybe want a bit more than, you know, the sort of Monday to Friday 9 to 5, because it's not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job. You know, you've got to you know, it's really interesting. You know, it's a really interesting job. You'll meet lots of interesting people. You'll never, you know, no 2 days will be the same. So I think first and foremost you have to want to make that really want to make that move, you know, out of the, you know, out of the sort of traditional, you know, the traditional job that an electrician would have. You've got to be, you know, really enthusiastic, willing to learn. You know, you'll have a lot to learn. You know, as I said, when I started, I was already qualified, but it was almost like starting again, if you know what I mean, just because there's, you know, so many different techniques and terminologies, etc. What it tends to be, it's been quite kind of historical in the industry in Scotland, that it's been fully qualified, time served sparks who have entered the industry. In London, it used to be like that as well, but what they found was it was really quite difficult to it was difficult to attract people into the industry. It was difficult to find that number of qualified sparks who wanted to move over. So in London, I think maybe about 15, 20 years ago, they slightly changed the model, and that's the model that we're going to operate at Kelvin Hall, where the gaffer will be a fully qualified, time served electrician. We'll be looking for the crew who come in to have, you know, have some qualifications. You know, we might be looking for you to have your BS 7909, which is the temporary distribution certificate. You know, we'd probably look for you to have done your most recent wiring regs up to date. We've still to absolutely thrash it out, but I just feel that it's I've seen so many people with passion for this industry over the years who have worked in theatres, who have, you know, maybe worked in live events, but then they've tried to get into BBC Scotland, for example, and there's been a bit of a barrier there, because when they were 16 they didn't they didn't do a 4-year apprenticeship, and it's not really like you can go back in time and do that. And apprenticeships are very, very hard to come by these days. So yeah, at Kelvin Hall, we're going to be operating differently, and I really hope that will help us attract more people into the industry.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear of the kind of different approaches that different organisations and companies take, just depending on their kind of setup and things like that. And interesting as well to hear about the soft skills that you're talking about there as well, because they are really important, aren't they? And I think we do a lot of work with new entrants coming in, but also people transferring their skills. And when we talk to crew in all departments, the number one thing that comes up is enthusiasm. That's the first thing that people talk about, not necessarily about the skills that you have technically and things like that. So it was really interesting to hear you say that as one of your first ones as well.
Do you know that the other thing that's really important as well is this is a really obvious one, but an ability to get on with people, and actually an ability to get on with people on all levels. You will interact with you will interact with actors, you will interact with directors, you will interact with and everyone, and you will spend a lot of time with these people as well. And it's just some of the sort of best laughs I've had, I think, I've been on set at time. It can be a really nice place to work. No one's too stressed about anything, if you know what I mean. It's really nice.
That's funny. Well, I was just going to ask you, why do you enjoy working in the film and TV industry? But maybe you've answered it already. Is there any other things that you particularly enjoy?
I really enjoy I enjoy what you get working in this industry are lots of small achievements. So by that, what I mean is you start a job, you do the job, you finish the job, and each time you finish that job, you get that satisfaction that, oh, that was really good. We did a great job there, and you've produced something really nice, and you see it on the telly, and you think to yourself, wow, that's brilliant. And that happens over and over and over again when you work in this industry. Whereas, let's say you worked in a factory and you did electrical maintenance in there or whatever, it's kind of every day is kind of the same, and I just think you don't get the same satisfaction.
I think that's, I can really see what you mean by that. Having worked in the industry myself, I know exactly what you mean. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the number of times I've walked away from a job thinking, we as a team, we did such an amazing job there. That was brilliant, and it's a real nice feeling as well. When that last cable goes back in the truck, or and you head off and finish that job, you think to yourself, lovely, that was great. And I don't think you get that feeling with a sort of normal 9-to-5 job.
Well, I can see someone who joined us who was obviously agreeing with that last cable thought there. Hello, Darren. How are you?
Hi, Amy. Sorry I'm late. Apologies all round.
No.
You're wrap early 2 nights in a row, and then one night you have plans. And this is the kind of thing that can happen.
Welcome to the film and TV industry.
Exactly. So apologies.
No, not at all. It's really lovely to have you with us, and thank you for joining us straight from set. I really appreciate it. I can see live in the heart of the action.
Yeah, I've still got a sweat on from loading the truck.
Well, we're just having a really great chat there with Stuart about the kind of landscape in Scotland and working in the studios and all that kind of side of things. And he was talking us through his experiences. And he's kind of been on the floor spark, and he's worked his way up, and he's been now worked in PQ, and he's been working at the new Kelvin Hall Studios. I was wondering, could we hear a little bit from you about how you got into the industry and what your career's been like recently?
Yeah, no problem. So basically, I kind of got into the industry. It was through BECTU. BECTU were holding one of these. It was like an open day really at the River City Studios, and invited sparks from all different industries to come along and have a wee look and have a wee nosy and see if they'd be interested in basically transferring their skills into this sector. So I came along quite dubious, to be honest. I came along not shut off, but I was a little, I don't really know. And, fast forward 3 years and I do nothing else. So yeah, it was basically through BECTU. They organised a little thing and basically put a few electricians together, and then put on a little course, and just to kind of give you a flavour of some of the temporary installation stuff that you might get involved in. And then I went on to do some experience stuff in Outlander, at the Outlander Studios at Ward Park. And basically that was it. It was, the jury was still out a month or two in, but like Stuart was saying there, I just caught the tail end of that. There is something quite, it's hard to put your finger on, but it's something addictive about working on different productions and then seeing it as it goes to air, and you just think, yeah, I was part of that little team. So and that's what kind of keeps you drawn back again and again.
And you're working on a production just now, which is great. So thank you very much for joining us straight off the floor of that.
No bother.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you kind of do on a day-to-day basis? What the kind of role is of an electrician? I know it varies depending on the production and what you're filming, but could you talk us through a little bit about what your responsibilities are?
Yeah. So on this production, I'm the Jenny op. So that would involve basically driving the truck to set, setting up the generator, getting it running, setting up all the mains. So setting up all your power, plugging into the Jenny and doing all your subdivision mains down from there, and having that all ready, and maybe putting on another wee leg where you're ready to go shooting. Once you're finished that scene, you might move on to something else and then be ready to put lamps and that onto that supply. So you're just really doing that, keeping an eye on the generator, making sure it doesn't run out of fuel first and foremost. Just occasionally keep a wee eye on it, making sure it's running okay, and once that's up and running, it kind of babysits itself. So you're basically a floor spark after that. You know, you're working with the gaffer and the best boy, and just setting up the equipment, passing in the equipment, setting up a little dump, you know, next to maybe where the film is taking place. Sometimes the trucks are a little bit away, so you have to kind of cross load all your stuff and set up a little dump of kit that you think you might need and have it there ready, because everything really happens quite quick. You know, if they're setting up for another shot and stuff, that because there's so many people involved in the production, if it's whether it's grips or hair and makeup or the sparks, everybody tries to be as quick and as efficient as possible to get you moving. So yeah, so that's basically it on this one at the moment. So Jenny up, and then just setting up the mains, and then setting up all the kit. And I was outside all day, so I might look a little weather beaten.
Sounds like it definitely keeps you on your toes anyway. Not much quiet time.
Yeah, exactly.
And how did you find, because you were am I right in thinking you were a domestic electrician before you moved across to film and TV? What did you do prior to that, and how did you find that transition?
Yeah, I was actually more commercial industrial, to be honest. And yeah, it's certainly different. It's very, very different. The principles of the power and stuff's the same, you know, when you're counting your circuits, and you're just getting used to the different type of cabling systems and counting the amps, you know, just make sure you're balancing the load and you're not going to overload and stuff like that. So from that point of view, having an electrical background is fantastic, because you know you can work out how 200 amps on a cable, or you know, you can do that quite quickly, quite easily. So that definitely helps you. But the thing is that you have to start learning as basically the kit. The kit is very different. So it's just getting your head around the kit. When you walk onto set and you see all the stuff being used, you're just, it's another world. So certainly from either domestic, commercial or industrial sparking, it's just very, very different. But once you learn the kit and you get your head around the kit, then it all starts to come together. Once you know how to put it together and what the things are called. There's like 3 names for everything. So yeah, learning what everything's called and how it goes together, that's key.
Really interesting that a lot of the principles are the same, but as you say, it's like that kind of kit thing that's one of the big things. It's the difference, you know. I've heard a few people who've transferred their skills over mention that as being one of the most overwhelming things is just the kit. But as you say, once you get your head around it,
Yeah, it just takes time. It just you'll never learn it overnight. You just have to persevere and just try and tune in as much as you can. Tune into what people are saying and what they're calling it. Because the gaffer might ask for an American, and somebody might say, "Go and get a triple off the truck," and it's the same thing. So it's, you know, it's just wee things like that that you can try and tune in and listen to. But yeah, the principles, and especially if they've had fault finding experience, that stands you in great stead here, because inevitably things do go wrong, circuits do trip, and then, but we had a ballast just melt the other day there and start smoking, and then the light tripped, and so it's just wee things like that. You know, it doesn't phase you as a spark, because you're kind of used to fault finding, and then just thinking methodically, you know, right, hang on, where would that have tripped? How can we get that reset? Or you might need to go back to another box. So that really helps.
That's great. And what surprised you about working in film and TV? The good bits and the bad bits. Were there any big surprises?
So the bad bits, right? So we'll just cut straight to the chase. The hours are long. The hours are long. Could be very long days. Once you're on a production, they basically own you. So you know, this the one that I'm on at the moment. It's only 6 weeks, but we're only off this weekend. The rest of the shoot, we're working Saturdays or Sundays or both. So yeah, so that's the bad bits, and it can be hard. You know, it can be hard outside, standing there watching a lamp in the pouring rain, and everybody thinks, "Oh, TV glamour." You're just standing there getting soaked to the bone. But yeah, that's the worst parts. That's the worst parts. So if you can get your head through that, the good parts for me certainly outweigh the bad parts. So the good parts are you get a right buzz about jumping onto new productions. It's like another little family getting together, and you kind of know a lot of people. You start knowing people, and you've met them on other jobs, so you kind of get a wee catch up with the different people in the different departments. There's right good camaraderie and good crack in a crew. You know, there's a good bit of banter, so I quite enjoy all that. Yeah, and it's just it's just something that draws you in. It feels good. Feels nice to be part of that and just get involved.
Yeah. Oh, it's a special industry.
It is.
You mentioned that it's kind of beneficial understanding power and that kind of side of things. What other skills do you think are useful coming into the industry that aren't necessarily, you know, understanding electricity? What did you find was helpful, kind of soft skill wise? Was there anything that's helpful or good?
Yeah, if you can stay calm under pressure and just, like, you know, don't panic and don't flap around, you know, because it's quite easy just to kind of panic a little bit and start to lose your way and not think. So if you can be quite cool under pressure, that really helps, because sometimes you are under a little bit of pressure. You've got a director and a first standing looking at you going, "You know, got that rig yet?" You know, if you're rigging a wee light in the corner, you just need to stay calm and get it done. So if you've got a bit of patience, and you can pick things up quite quickly, you know, and that can go for anything, you know what I mean? Not necessarily the electrical, but just picking things up and watching what's going on and just tuning in. If you can do that, and just pay attention and just things up, then that would stand you in good stead.
Yeah, really good advice.
And a good communicator as well, you know, because we all use radios, and you have to be able to communicate well, you know, because if you're not communicating on the radio, things can get a little messy. People going and getting double the equipment and all that, it just doesn't look good. It looks unorganized, and so so long as you can communicate and you're not a shrinking violet, and you're not scared to talk on the radio, then that.
Brilliant. Oh, I'm still there.
I lost you there.
Oh no, we're there. We're good. So just my last question for you for the moment. Do you have any advice for anyone thinking about applying for this traineeship that we're running and kind of thinking about moving their skills? Or what would your advice be for somebody that was looking to get into film and TV?
Yeah, do you know, I'm trying to rewind to like myself, you know, a few years ago. I would say it's definitely, if they've got any doubt, or if they're just thinking about it, I would say give it a try. You know, pursue it. The industry is growing in Scotland. You know, it's like, my goodness, even since I started, the amount of stuff that's going on, and and the amount of the shortage of crew at times, you know, in jobs, and good crew. You know, there's there's crew and there's good crew. So you know, I would definitely say, give it a try. You know, yeah, give it a try. I'm just trying to thinking what else they could do to maybe improve their chances. It's just just again, it's that whole just thinking methodically, and in case you have to do a little bit of troubleshooting or anything like that, because all the rest of the stuff really just comes once you're on the ground and you're there. A little bit of set etiquette as well. You know, as I say, we have banter and all that, but sometimes can be quite serious, because it can be quite a serious scene that's going on. You know, emotionally, maybe for an actor that's maybe trying to play a right emotional part, and sometimes, you know, people are just trying to have a bit of crack, and you just got to kind of read the room a little bit with that, and just try and, you know, just have a little bit of set etiquette and just stay quiet and just let them do their thing, and there's plenty of time for a wee chit chat later.
That's an excellent top tip. I always share that with anyone coming into the industry, is read the room and make sure you're not chatting all the time. Don't be chatting all the time.
Exactly.
Some of the time is fine, but not all the time. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren. I'm going to invite Stuart back now. Stuart, if you're still there. Hello, welcome back.
Hello.
Hello. It's been so fantastic to hear from both of you, just about your different experiences. And it's really interesting to have had Stuart here without Darren, because when Darren's come in, he's reiterated a lot of what Stuart said. So it feels like the message is all the same about there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of the similar soft skills that you need. And if you've got a good understanding of power, you're well set on the way to being able to work well in this industry. And we've had a couple of questions come in that I was just wondering if I could possibly pose to you, if that's all right. Darren, you kind of touched on this already. Someone's had a message saying, do you need a driver's license to work in the film and TV industry? You mentioned being a Jenny op, that obviously you drive the Jenny.
Yeah.
Is that something that you need for all roles, or, and I'll bring Stuart into this as well, for the kind of studio-based roles, do you think that a driver's license is essential?
So I'm going to say no, because I'm working with an electrician. I was working with an electrician on my last production there, and she never drove, and she worked with us for 17 weeks on the full production. So so it is possible. I think it would depend on departments as well. For Sparks, it is more difficult. I would definitely say it's a huge advantage if you drive, because of some of the locations and that we work. So it's so hard to get to some of these places via public transport. So I would definitely say the door's not shut and somebody that doesn't drive, because I've worked with a Spark there that didn't drive. So it's certainly possible. But yeah, massive, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, a massive benefit to, you know, if you do drive. I sat my HGV after coming into this industry, but because of the reason that they use the trucks. So I did that last year. So it's, yeah, if somebody was thinking about it, then I would certainly recommend that if they can, to look at get driving, but it certainly wouldn't close the door for them from what I've seen.
And Stuart, is that the same from your side of things? Would you agree with that?
Well, you know, I'm coming from it from a studio's point of view, and yeah, you don't need a driving license at all if you're working in the studio. The hours tend to be a little bit steadier than working in dramas or OBs and things like that. So you can generally, you know, public transport if you don't drive, or I mean, I live in Rutherglen and I cycle across to Kelvin Hall. It's pretty easy to do that.
Very green of you, Stuart.
Unless it's pouring, and then I'm jumping in the car.
We've had another question in that's just asking about, I think it was Stuart that mentioned about tools and how you turned up with your tools on the first day and you didn't need any of those tools. But is there anything that you should be gathering for your kit before you start working in the industry? Is there anything that you should bring? Or is it all just there? Is it all just that crazy kit that Darren mentioned?
So that's a great question, by the way. That's a good question, and yeah, I would agree with Stuart. The tool list is certainly different. By all means, bring a small pack of screwdrivers, but I would recommend they buy a Leatherman. Or other makes are available. It's certainly a go-to that I never see myself using, that I use probably 20 times a day. So
Really?
yeah, and a good LED torch, because whether you're studio or out and about in location, I'm sure studios they mimic night and it's pitch black, so sometimes need to get in about there with a little torch.
Excellent. Good advice, and achievable, I would say. Those are tools that probably are quite accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I mean that, I was probably like Darren, when you were when I was working in the sort of, non-TV industry, I would never have used a multi-tool. You'd have laughed at someone who pulled out a multi-tool, but actually that absolutely is a tool of choice. And a good pair of gloves as well. Good pair of leather gloves is also something that you'll see every spark wearing, because you can be, lamps get pretty hot. So.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you both. Someone said, I'm gathering the lighting effect has to be very precise. Does a crew member measure the lumens?
Ooh.
I'm throwing that out there because I have no idea what that means as a non-electrician.
Well, Darren, you may be working in dramas and stuff. I don't know whether DOPs do still use light meters or.
Yeah, the DOP does. The crew certainly don't, but yeah, you see the DOP out with a lux meter or their lux meter and measuring what they're getting. Yep.
Brilliant, thank you. And someone's asking, how do I go about finding work? So how do you go about finding work in the film and TV industry? Now, you're both kind of coming at it from different perspectives, I guess, because Stuart, you're going to be the employer, and Darren, you're someone that's out doing the freelance work. So Darren, I'll maybe come to you first. How did you obviously came through BECTU Vision and we connected you with opportunities, and that's something that we're doing again just now, and that's what we hope to do through our new initiatives. And the links that we'll share later on will give you access to the email addresses that you can connect with us via to kind of connect with opportunities. But beyond that, Darren, how did you navigate that kind of first steps into the industry and get work?
So yeah, just basically being very new into the industry, you have to kind of just get your head down and show that you're willing to work and willing to, can be physical, just put in some hard work, and it gets noticed. Gaffers, best boys and other crew members like to see that, because if you're sharing the workload and everybody's getting involved, it makes it easier for everybody. So, and then if you can prove that you're willing to get stuck in, I suppose, then, as I say, gaffers, best boys and crew members notice. And then when other crews, best boys all phone one another, and gaffers, a lot of gaffers will call each other, and and they'll maybe, it's basically like a reference style. Do you know this guy? Have you worked with him before? What were they like? And they're more than happy to recommend you. So then it ends up, necessarily you can get in touch with them, and if they're looking for somebody, it might just suit. So these email addresses and stuff, they might just go, oh, there's a person being in touch, and I'll give this person a wee try, and that way might work. But then also word of mouth thing. So if you start working and doing a few shifts, then you might find that your phone will ring from somebody else asking you, could you come onto this for 2-3 days and just help us out? Because before I've started on this one, I think I've just done 2 weeks on one job, 2 weeks on another job, and 2 weeks on a different job before that, just helping different people out. So yeah, basically put yourself out there, and if they're looking for people, I'm sure they'll get back in touch and hopefully give you a wee start, or give you a wee shot, to see.
Yeah. And Stuart, what about you? Will there be a kind of more formal approach from Studio Works when I know you're not opening until later on in the year, but how will that work for when you're recruiting for electricians?
Yeah, I mean, we will be recruiting. We'll be putting an advert out for a full-time gaffer very shortly. After we do that, over the next few months, we hope to work with kind of industry bodies to help promote the industry, and probably hold some open days, a bit like the open day Darren attended down at River City. So we certainly hope to do that, because I absolutely recognise that Darren's already touched on it. At times it's really difficult to find crew, and I would say for anyone on the call who is thinking about it, there absolutely are opportunities out there. There really are. Sometimes they're not that easy to find, but we certainly hope to work with social media, try and get word out there as much as we can, and invite people along.
Yeah, we'll be helping you with that any way we can. Someone's asked, and this is one that always comes up regardless of what interest area they have, what's the best boys role? That's a strange job title. Could one of you fill me in on what a best boy does, and whether we're ever going to change it to be slightly more gender neutral or bring in the ladies? Best woman.
So
Darren, you go for it.
So yeah, I've actually, so believe it or not, I've worked with a best girl as well. So they are doing both best boy and best girl. So basically, it's the gaffer's like the manager, I suppose, and the best boy, best girl is like the supervisor. But it's a lot more. I would say their role is a lot more admin orientated now. A best boy or a best girl, they'll get involved with all the kind of admin that the gaffer is too busy to get involved with, or he needs to delegate and get them to do, whether it's organising Jenny's getting fueled up and then they deal with production and get that done, or dealing with the hire companies, whether it's PKE, Panelux, Pixie Pixel, arranging kit, because your kit can change from day to day, different jobs. You might have a shoot day where you need huge big kit, and then another shoot day where you're outside and you're doing nothing. And they do the timesheets, and they do, they do all the timesheets for the crew and the overtime and all that kind of stuff. So it's certainly, I would say it's more admin orientated.
Right, okay, that's interesting. Kind of as you say, moving up into that managerial, not quite a manager, but that kind of middle ground.
Yeah, that step middle ground, yep.
It's an interesting role. Someone's asked if there's a standard pay scale. How does that work when you're moving up through the ranks? Is it the same wages across all jobs, or does it vary depending on the size of job that you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in all the time here, Stuart.
No, go for it, Darren. Yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, so I started as a trainee, and I had to go into trainee pay, which wasn't as high a rate, obviously, because you're not doing the same job as everybody else. You're just picking it up and learning it and learning from others. So I was happy to do that. Some people aren't, but then after that, and you might only do that for maybe 6 months, maybe not even 6 months, around about, and then you go into a full rate. But the rate does depend on whether it's TV drama or whether it's movie under £10 million budget, or a movie over a £10 million budget. So the day rate changes, but it's as a fixed rate per day, and then you get overtime for over and above, and then you get on camera overtime, which might be different as well. So yeah, it's all about but it's structured to a certain degree, because BECTU, obviously, they fight to get the rates where they are, because let's be honest, production companies will try and and not cover those rates, or if they can do it for cheaper, they might try. But if it's according to BECTU and PACT and whatnot, then they have to stick to those rates.
Yeah, and I'd say the majority of the professional productions do stick to the kind of rate cards.
Yep.
Maybe in a time gone by when there was slightly more unscrupulous production companies around, but that's not so much the case anymore, I would say, particularly with how many productions are running and things like that at the moment as well. It's a competitive environment, I think. There's a lot of productions running, and people can select what they want to work on a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a busy field. So we're rapidly approaching the end of our hour. It's absolutely flown by. But I was going to ask you one of my questions that I always try to ask everyone, because I'm always really interested. What's your standout favourite memory from working in the film and TV industry? Is there one day or one achievement or one thing that you think of really fondly?
Yeah, I've got one, and it's very, very easy. It was while I was an electrician at BBC Scotland, I was lucky enough to go out to India to work. So we went out to India to film a kids show. Kids show was called Raven, and they filmed a series of it out in India, in Hyderabad, in one of these big Bollywood movie towns. It was incredible. So I was out there for 6 weeks. I gaffered that show out there. I had a full crew of Indian sparks with me, and honestly, it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. It was amazing. Loved it.
That's amazing.
It really was. It really was. It was incredible, and I learned so much from that job. I really did. I mean, the crew I was working with were super experienced, big Bollywood movies, and there was me, there was me who'd done a bit of work in River City, out there with them, and they were absolutely fantastic with me. They really were. It was great.
Oh, it can take you anywhere, can't it, this industry?
It really can. It can.
And Darren, what about you?
Fantastic. I'm certainly not trumping that. Well done. That sounds awesome. So the thing that I kind of pinched myself was I was probably just under a year doing this job, and they were desperate for crew for the film Eurovision that Will Ferrell was shooting over here, and I got asked to go into that through in Edinburgh and do the second unit stuff for a week, and it was just such fond memories. There was guys over from Belfast, and I went onto the rigging crew. It was my first time rigging, because I'd always been shooting before that. Because obviously, I don't know if you covered, there's kind of two different roles in bigger jobs. You could be on rigging crew and not in the shooting crew. So that was great memories. It poured down for the week, and I worked such long hours, but I just enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed just getting my teeth into something else, and it was a wee pinch me moment, like, I can't believe I'm working on a Netflix film with Will Ferrell. So I really enjoyed it. It was good. It was a good experience.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you both. They're both excellent answers that I will take away, because they're both very good examples of why it's amazing to work in our industry and what makes all the difference. A huge thank you to both of you for joining us tonight. It's been so interesting to hear more about the role of electricians in film and TV, and how much variety there is in it, and how much opportunity, I think, as well. I think you've both really sold how much is out there at the moment. We are opening up, we're now open for applications for our electrician conversion programme, which is the opportunity to come and work for a series of River City, and then spend some time on different productions filming across Scotland, where you'll get to meet all the different kind of gaffers and bass boys that Darren and Stuart have mentioned. You'll get to spend some time at Panelux as well, which is the largest hire company in Scotland, and get familiarised with all that kit and all the things that we've been talking about, learn some names and get some connections and things like that. But we're also really keen to build a pool of talent that we can then connect with the studios that are here as well, because as Stuart's explained, Studio Works is going to be opening, and it's going to have a great demand for talent beyond what already exists at the moment and all the different productions that are happening. So I've included a link in the chat that has all the details for BECTU Vision and some signposts for other organisations and links for information, as well as links to the application process. Also on there is our email address. It's vision@bectu.org.uk. And if you want to follow up on any questions that you have from this webinar, any questions about the traineeship itself, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're here to help, and we're here to help all year round as well. So even if it's not the right moment for you right now to apply for the traineeship, but you'd like to find out more about maybe getting some work experience or keeping in the loop with the opportunities that are going to be coming up, that's something that we can help you with as well. So please do keep in touch with us. Let us know if there's anything at all that we can help with. Once again, a huge thank you to Darren and Stuart, and also Sarah, who's been doing all the tech and feeding me the questions behind the scenes as well. Thank you so much to all of you for being a part of this evening.